Ladies and gentlemen, we finally have some comments from Raiders owner Mark Davis on the firing of former head coach Josh McDaniels. He had a lot to say about his decision making and the future. What we learned today is that interim GM Champ Kelly and interim head coach Antonio Pierce have a serious shot to take this job long term. We're gonna break this down. I am still working on my Josh McDaniels film, but there is so much news coming out right now. Make sure to like and subscribe so you do not miss any content from me, whether it be news or the Genius Josh film. Hilarious meme by Raider Post here on Mark Davis after seeing that Lions game.
Get that son of a bitch off the field right now. Out. He's fired. He's fired!
I really hope that Mark Davis did the finger point. I am now on Twitter, so make sure you check me out at Real Wi-Fi Willie. But you had David Carr on NFL Network, NFL Total Access, talking about the firing of Josh McDaniels, and I thought what he said here was pretty interesting.
It's the culture. It's how you treat people. When you come into the building and you try to behave like Bill Belichick without having gained that respect from the locker room right off the bat, you lose guys.
And that is exactly what I figured is happening with Genius Josh McDaniels. Big ego, my way or the highway, doesn't listen to players like that NFLPA report card. And he thinks just because he rode the coattails of Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, and the refs in the league helping them out during their dynasty period, just because he had all that success there as an offensive coordinator, he thinks he's the shit, and he doesn't think he has to listen to or respect players. Raiders owner Mark Davis has now spoken out after firing Josh McDaniels. He thought Josh McDaniels was going to help the Raiders and help them return to greatness, but he said they were heading in a wrong direction. This is from Paul Gutierrez of ESPN talking to Mark Davis. Mark Davis said, "I had great hopes for Josh and Dave. It just seemed like we were going in the wrong direction. So with the trade deadline, I just felt it was time to make a change, time to make a move." More big quotes from Mark Davis from The Athletic to Sean Reed talking to Mark Davis. Mark Davis saying that he saw regression with the Raiders under Josh McDaniels. He didn't see progress, he saw regression. Davis believed that Josh McDaniels has a fertile offensive mind, and he thought he could bring a fresh and explosive offense to the Raiders. But here is where things get interesting with interim GM Champ Kelly and interim head coach Antonio Pierce. Champ Kelly under Dave Ziegler was the assistant GM, and Mark Davis said had he not done the duo of Genius Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler, Champ Kelly may have gotten the job at the time as just the full GM. Champ Kelly was a hotshot GM candidate in that 2022 offseason. He seemed very confident at the opening press conference at 42 years old, did work with the Denver Broncos as an assistant director of pro personnel from 2010 to 2014. Then he spent some time in the scouting department, personnel department for the Bears before then coming to the Raiders as an assistant GM. Kelly may have a long-time relationship with Genius Josh McDaniels. He joined the Broncos right before McDaniels was the head coach there, but did have an overlap with Josh McDaniels in 2009 and 2010. In ESPN's interview with Davis, Davis said that head coach Antonio Pierce seemed like a fresh approach, and he seemed like the adjustment that they need at this time. What's very interesting is Davis says he wants Pierce to lead, not necessarily to coach, but to delegate, be somebody they could follow, and he felt good about it, feels good about him. Seems like that's something that Josh McDaniels lacks. Yes, he's a good coordinator, knows the X's and O's, but does not know how to lead people, does not know how to inspire people. Davis believes that Antonio Pierce understands the culture of the Raiders, and it was very important to him. He feels good about it. Tons of Raiders fans loved Antonio Pierce's energy at the opening press conference. He's a longtime Raiders fan from Compton.
I had opportunities to leave and go to other organizations. I decided not to. The short story, the matter of fact is I grew up in Compton, California. I was born a Raider. I was born with the Raiders rolling in the Coliseum in LA. I was rolling with NWA, talking straight out of Compton, rocking Raider hats. So when the opportunity came to work with Josh and Pat Graham and Dave, I jumped on it. So that's what set me up for this. I was born this way.
This is hilarious because this is a guy who has the complete opposite energy as Josh McDaniels. We know that the weird ass, and deep breath guy wasn't going to work out. So let's try the complete opposite. Some guy with some charisma, some guy with some fire, some guy with some passion who grew up a Raiders fan, is really attached to the organization. David Carr even has some experience with Antonio Pierce. They played together for a little bit with the Giants, and he has a little story about him.
He's awesome. So he was playing linebacker for the New York Giants my first year there when I got there, and we're actually playing the Raiders, the Oakland Raiders, right? So come off the field, we're high-fiving, I'm excited, I spiked the ball. Antonio looks at me and goes, you don't disrespect that football team. I'm like, you're the linebacker for the Giants. What are you talking about? He's like, that's my football team over there.
He was so attached to the Raiders as a linebacker for the Giants, he couldn't even showboat. Antonio Pierce, 45 years old, was an undrafted linebacker in the NFL, an eventual Super Bowl champion, winning the Super Bowl with the New York Giants for the 2007 season. What's so funny is this Super Bowl, Super Bowl 42, technically the 2008 Super Bowl of the 2007 season, Antonio Pierce was there with Eli Manning at quarterback, and they played the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots were 16-0 that season with Tom Brady and freaking Randy Moss. These guys were lighting it up that year, and they thought everything was going to be great, but the New York Giants spoiled their hope for a perfect season and won the Super Bowl over the Patriots in 2008. And the cherry on top of this Super Bowl victory for Antonio Pierce when he was a linebacker for the Giants is the fact that the offensive coordinator for the Patriots at that time was none other than genius Josh McDaniels. Oh, yes, yes, yes. After retiring from the NFL, Pierce would be a head coach for Cal Poly, but then eventually became a linebacker coach / recruiter for Herm Edwards in the Arizona State Sun Devils. If you watch football in the early 2000s like me, you remember Herm Edwards on the sideline for the New York Jets and the Kansas City Chiefs as their head coach. Even though this was a college coaching opportunity, Antonio Pierce was working with NFL caliber coaching with Herm Edwards there, and even became the associate head coach in 2020. Before he became an Arizona State Sun Devil, he tried to do a little bit of broadcasting, a little bit of analyst work.
Now we're joined by former Giants linebacker and current ESPN broadcaster Antonio Pierce. Antonio, good to see you.
It's good, man. It's a little different with the suit on. Normally I'm out here with a helmet and a jersey, but you know, I traded in a couple years ago, so I'm good.
There you go. He was looking pretty fresh. According to The Athletic, Mark Davis said he barely got familiar with Antonio over the past year and a half, and he got to know him a little bit, and he liked his resume as a coach. He was intrigued, and when he sat down with him and interviewed him, he felt like he was the right guy at the right time. But here's the real kicker and the real interesting thing here. Mark Davis says that he's going to go into his next coaching search with an open mind, and he felt like every time he has searched for a head coach, he had a preconceived notion of who he was choosing. This time around, his thought process is wide open, and there's a very good chance that the head coach and general manager that we have right now may end up getting the job. That is absolutely huge and a big statement by Mark Davis. That means that Champ Kelly, who he previously said he may have hired had the Dave Ziegler and McDaniels duo never happened, and also Antonio Pierce, somebody who he's gotten to know recently, it seems like Mark Davis is going to give these guys the benefit of the doubt. It seems like he's optimistic about these guys. Maybe his experience with Rich Bisaccia, who is a great motivator, maybe that is making him consider people like Antonio Pierce. Also, Mark Davis is pretty much flushing $45 million down the drain. Maybe he doesn't want a big-time expensive coach this time around. All in all, I'm going to root for these guys no matter what and hope they do a great job this year. And geez, man, I got to get going on that Josh McDaniels film, man. And we are going to be live cheering for this football team without genius Josh McDaniels this Sunday. So make sure you join this channel live. We'll be doing play-by-play and reaction. Like and subscribe if you have not yet. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.